That thing bleeding to the, you know what I mean?
Wocky Slush.
That thing bleeding, P.
What's up, yo? Did you hear about what happened on December 25th, 2020?
So you mean besides Christmas?
So you didn't hear about the huge bombing in Nashville? It happened close to the AT&T building, and it caused a lot of damage to the historical buildings downtown.
I had absolutely no Wi-Fi for a week. It was awful. Well, not everything was bad. There were some good things too.
Miriam, who are these weirdos that randomly popped up out of nowhere?
Wocky Slush.
So lots of people's work was affected, which caused the Wi-Fi went out for 3 days, which caused others' work to be affected because it happened on Christmas Day. Lots of people had to go back to work, which means they could not pay for other electronics they may have given their children. They could not repay or pay their bills. There were many things that were affected in this tragedy, including them actually going to work.
Yeah, but, on the bright side, some old buildings were remodeled in Nashville. So, the ones that were destroyed, some of those were really old. And so now they're being remodeled to be newer and more modern.
But others around the building were affected, which caused lots of damage and colossal damage, maybe fees and government expenses.
But like others, do you mean people too?
Maybe like pedestrians, maybe cops were on the scene of the crime, including the person who was killed, who was the bomber.
So talking about how you said some buildings are being remodeled, what about artifacts? Those could have been destroyed as well.
They probably were, which is, that's not a good thing, but, out with the old and in with the new, I guess. I mean, that's just a con that can't be helped.
Yeah.
And, with some of the historic buildings, Nashville's done a lot of work to preserve them, and so, yeah.
Well, yes, it is based around a lot of artifacts that happened in the olden ages, 1800s, Civil War-esque, but with these caused lots of panic in these old buildings. Sorry.
Oh, my Lord.
I
Well,
can't.
you bring up a good point. There's been a lot of support to the people who are now trying to find a home because of the bombing. My stepmom gave a homemade lasagna that I could have eaten to some of the people that she knows through church because their home was destroyed in the bombing, or it was like an apartment, and so their apartment was destroyed. They had to move out, and now they're looking to find a new home and new stuff, and so there's been a lot of support to those people. Brooklyn, bring up your third point.
Lots of people had to evacuate from the scene quickly, which also could have caused harm to the others in the building. So when the building collapsed, many others, including pedestrians, cops, and people around the scenes, just innocent bystanders, were also affected in this tragic bombing, which also could have caused, as you said before, the historic artifacts could have fallen on others. And lots of panic, which...
It's panic. Panic is bad.
Oh, yeah, wait.
Also about the homes, how losing your home is obviously bad, but it also could have helped them, other people who were trying to move out of that home but couldn't because they didn't have enough money. Now they have enough support to go find another better home.
It's like funds.
Yeah.
So funds from their houses being destroyed. So do they have other funds from this bombing?
You know what? I'm gonna I'm gonna agree with Brooklyn on a lot of her points, because, the Nashville bombing was a really bad thing that happened. Nah.
Like, also the Wi-Fi outage caused a lot of, like, policemen to struggle to find work.
Yeah.
They had to get
Investigators.
their personal numbers had to be put out there because the 911 wasn't working.
Yeah.
Wait, I have no idea.
Because the bombing caused 9/11 operators, like, the...
Oh, I thought you meant... Never mind.
Okay.
Ooh, look at this.
Explain.
Lots of... Wait, I can't explain that because I don't know about the topic that much.
Okay, so another con would be that the number 911 that you would dial in a bad situation, for an emergency, that number stopped working because a lot of telephone lines were down and a lot of internet was down. And so people couldn't dial 911 if something happened for those 2 or 3 days. But thankfully they, obviously fixed it. But yeah, you just couldn't dial 911 and expect someone to answer for that period of time.
Obviously, there was a certain area that was affected by the bomb, but people who were outside of that certain area could have also been affected by the debris flying from the explosion.
Yeah.
There were videos taken outside of buildings, workplaces, some hospitals, because there's a hospital in Middle Tennessee, or middle of Nashville. There were photos taken of the fires and the debris, papers, buildings that have crashed, and where said man was walking. There was lots of crashes. There was a way they had to block off and barricade the streets so most people couldn't go to their workplaces, or maybe like doctor's appointments, dentist appointments.
Maybe people who were
Badly
injured couldn't get to where they wanted to go, like the
medical
hospital,
attention they needed.
because of the debris on the roads blocking it, or they just died.
Yeah.
To summarize this, the Nashville bombing had good and bad effects. A lot happened, and many lives were changed. That's all on Wocky Slush.
Wocky Slush.
Bye.
That thing bleeding to the,
Wocky Slush.
That thing bleeding, P.